newsroom. Till pretty recently, Europe and North America reaped the lion's share of the world's major sporting events, with the planet's population, though, shifting away from the West. The World Cup and the Olympics have gone global, places like China, South Africa. But has football's world governing body gone too far with Qatar? Nearly 3 years after the gas and oil-rich emirate became the first Arab state awarded the World Cup, a stormy session of FIFA's executive committee opening in Zurich this Thursday, members resisting moving the 2022 tournament from the desert heat of summer to winter, when Europe's leagues are in full swing. Add to it the growing clamor over the, quote, slave-like conditions under which migrant labor from the Indian subcontinent works to build the venues. Labor rights groups estimate if conditions aren't radically rethought, 4,000 of those migrant workers will have died in Qatar before the opening kickoff 7 years from now. To land the World Cup, money was no object. French football legend Zinedine Zidane hired among Qatar's bid's ambassadors to secure the vote. There was even a bribery scandal that included the head of the African Football Confederation. Qatar's brand new Emir has signaled a more low-profile presence on the world stage for a nation of 225,000 citizens, but that won't stop the emirate from spending in excess of $150 billion on the World Cup. Should Qatar even be hosting the World Cup, with protests marring the build-up to next year's tournament in Brazil? Do the benefits really outweigh the minuses of hosting what some critics call giant vanity projects? Today in the France 24 debate, second thoughts over Qatar 2022. With us from the Gulf Emirate of Abu Dhabi, Omar Al-Raisi, columnist for UAE Daily The National, and part of the local organizing committee for the FIFA Under-17 World Cup, which kicks off 2 weeks from today. Welcome to the debate, sir. Welcome from Brussels, Tim Noonan of the International Trade Union Confederation, outspoken on this issue. Thank you for being with us. And here in the studio, Christian Chenot, co-author of, let's see, how will we translate this? Qatar, Secrets from the Vault, the book's in French. Thanks for being with us. Thanks as well to Cintia Cardoso DELAUTRE from the Brazilian service of sister station Radio France International, and Joachim Barbier, journalist at SoFoot, and a lover of the Argentinian PSG player Javier Pastore.
Among others.
Maybe we'll talk about that later on. PSG owned by...
Qatari?
How topical. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. Let's begin, if you will, by turning back the clock. December the 2nd, 2010, Qatar awarded the World Cup, its organizers countering the concept that, quote, the Middle East might not be the most hospitable of places.
Bringing the World Cup to the Middle East now, and the FIFA's momentous decision today will showcase the world that the Middle East is home to a lot of people. It is opening its arms to the rest of the world, and in doing so, such misconceptions will be dissolved.
Misconceptions will be dissolved. I guess the misconceptions have not quite yet been dissolved, Christian.
This, I think the Qatar will keep the World Cup, but at the beginning, you know, we know that the weather is so hard in Qatar, so there is debate today to see if they will organize in summer or in winter, if there is corruption, etc. But I think the Qatar will go on for the Tamim, the new Emir. It's a huge project, and is now very focusing on this subject.
Joachim, you agree there's no going back?
No, I don't think so. I think they can't keep it in the summer. You know, FIFA is discussing, just set up a task force to talk about it. I think it's going to be a huge mess, especially between FIFA and UEFA, because all the European leagues will have to change the schedule and their habits playing in the winter. But I think that this World Cup will stay for Qatar, but which is funny and kind of the same story every time. That country who are organizing and bidding for that kind of big competition like Olympic Games, like a football World Cup, it's always a part of communication campaign for it, you know. But they don't understand that each time they are on the spot for every media, for the good and for the bad. And when you look at this investigation made by the Guardian journalist, I was sure that something like that would come up, because you're on the spot, and of course because there was all these bribery rumors, and I'm sure that in the next 10 years it will carry on till this World Cup kickoff.
Omar Al-Raisi, do you think that the organizers in Qatar perhaps didn't see this coming, that there would be scrutiny once Qatar got the bid, scrutiny over how they got the bid and how they're preparing it? Have they been caught off guard?
I think they have. I am not sure whether they imagined once they were preparing the bid or when they won the bid that they would have this amount of scrutiny from the press, from the fans, from FIFA, from journalists, from football lovers. I think they didn't expect that. And once they won it, then there was the issue of the weather, whether they want to do it in summer, winter. That was the biggest issue. In the last couple of weeks, I think Guardian did an investigation with the migrant workers, and I think that's a bigger issue right now, even bigger than the weather. So the organizers in Qatar have two big problems. One, whether they want to do it in summer or winter. Two, the migrant workers case right now, which was raised, and it has become even a bigger problem. So the solutions are whether if it's too hot, they move it to winter. Or if they don't want to move it to winter, they're going to do the cooling air-conditioned stadiums, air-conditioned fan zones, which are good solutions. But if they move it to winter, it had side effects.
All right, it's got side effects. Well, we could talk about the issue of summer or winter. Omar Al-Raisi there, almost quoting verbatim what the head of Europe's governing body, Michel Platini, said, which was that the issue of summer or winter to him is secondary to this issue of the migrant labor. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, in Brazil also we face almost the same problem, perhaps not to the same scale of in Qatar, but recently also have a problem like this in Brazil, where they found out that they have around 100 workers in slave-like conditions. So, of course, the weather is important, but to have a World Cup or such an important event based on poor condition of labor, of course, it's a big problem. Perhaps Platini is right, it's a bigger problem than the weather. Perhaps not in sports, but for the image of the tournament. For the image of the tournament.
Tim Noonan, what's your prediction as to where things will go from now on? Is Qatar starting to heed the call?
Well, none of this should be a surprise to Qatar nor to FIFA. We've been raising these issues with them for the past 2 years. We met with the FIFA Secretary-General in November of 2011, explained the situation in detail. We followed that up with correspondence on numerous occasions. We've also had a number of interactions with the authorities in Qatar at different levels, including at ministerial level. Nothing has moved. So it's really a tragedy. We see the reports coming, credible figures coming from the embassies of India and Nepal, two of the big countries of origin of the migrant workers, an average of 200 workers from each of those two countries dying every year for the past 3 years. If nothing is done, with the increase in workforce projected by the Qatari authorities themselves of some additional 500,000 workers or more, as many as 4,000 people could lose their lives before the first ball is kicked in the World Cup. So none of this is new.
Just to make it clear for us, how will they lose their lives?
There are a number of... the first thing that we need to recognise is that under the kafala system in Qatar, the workers are 24/7 dependent on their employer. They may not change their job. They may not leave the country. They may not organise together to ask for better wages or safe working conditions. So the deaths are occurring on the building sites. They're occurring on the way to and from the building sites with the chaotic and dangerous traffic conditions and transport arrangements that the workers have. And many of them are dying as a result of heat exhaustion and the incredibly unsanitary and unhygienic conditions in the labour camps at night. sometimes 12, 14 people to a room, no ventilation, no air conditioning, after 12 or more hours working in temperatures as high as 50 degrees. People are dying at night. These are young, fit men, and they're dying because of their work, and the responsibility is squarely on the shoulders of the Qatari authorities for their absolute failure to guarantee rights.
The Guardian on its website posted a video where it followed one Nepalese worker injured on a building site who won compensation from the construction company in a Qatari court. This only, though, after an 18-month court battle.
दिएन उनीहरूले केही पनि दिएन कम्पनीबाट भनौँ न एउटा बस्ने एउटा अर्थ त्यो भन्दा भएन उपचार गर्नुपर्ने त्यतिखेर एकदम जटिल चोटपटक भएको कारणले चाहिँ एकदम छिटोभन्दा छिटो हस्पिटल गइरहनु पर्ने अवस्था थियो पाकेर चाहिँ एकदम हैरान भएर सताएको थियो अब खानाको पैसा नै छैन हर कुरा त्यहाँनिर चाहिँ नहुँदाखेरि म अब एकदम समस्यामा परेछु.
Now, according to The Guardian, they tallied 44 Nepalese workers who died in Qatar between the 4th of June and the 8th of August of this year. Figures contested, it seems, by local authorities.
The number which was published by media greatly varied from the actual number.
For 2 weeks, we have been facing some situations that used our name to create a bad reputation for our people. This is despite the fact that people live and work in Qatar without any problems.
Christian Chenot, when you were doing the research for your book, what did you see?
But it's not a surprise, this migrants problem, because Human Rights Watch write a big report last year about all these problems, you know, the situation of the working people. And but what is very interesting is that in fact the Qatari, they don't want the World Cup. You know, who wants the World Cup? It's the royal family. You know, if you talk to the common people in Qatar, the Qatari, they are very conservative. They said it's a lot of problem. It's works everywhere. And maybe alcohol. You know, the people support fans coming with alcohol. So they don't want. In fact, it's the royal family who wants the World Cup, which is very strange when you talk to the people in Doha.
Omar Al Raisi, do you agree? Is that what you've noticed when you've been to Doha, that Qatari citizens themselves aren't that bothered about the World Cup?
Well, not all of them. You can always find 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 locals there who wouldn't want to be bothered with all these pressure, with all the media, with all the stuff which is coming out, giving a negative view of the country. But there is always a minority. But I think in general, people in Qatar, people in the whole Middle East, in fact, they are just so excited that finally, for the first time in history, FIFA World Cup is coming to their region.
All right, and we have a comment here on Facebook. The conditions of weather are not Qatar's fault, it's their region. And surely we can't blame them for the weather. Joachim, your thoughts?
No, but it's kind of surprising that it's weather became an issue today. What did the 23 members of the executive committee of the FIFA, when they read all the documents about did they know anything about the weather? Did it change so much between 3 years ago and today? In a way, it just proved what drove these people who choose Qatar. You know, you knew that it would become an issue. I'm not saying that it's 100% sure that there was some corruption, but these people have been, minimum we can say, light regarding this decision to hand over the World Cup organization to Qatar.
Some people said that the real battle is between Platini and Sepp Blatter, to have the succession of Sepp Blatter at the FIFA, and the Qatar is a pretext because, as you said, we know that there is 50 degrees in summer in Qatar, and there is the migrants. So it's not news, but I think behind the walls there is some fierce battle to secure the successor of Sepp Blatter at the FIFA.
And we're going to talk more about this issue of the football politics that go into it. Tim Noonan, let me ask you. When you see that it's what we're talking about here in our discussion, when you see that you say you've met with Qatari authorities, when you see that it's front page news again today in the British press, this story, do you feel as though there might be change for long-lasting change for the condition of migrant workers in the Gulf Emirates?
Well, the first positive thing to note is that the conspiracy of silence is now being broken. The reality of the plight of migrant workers in a number of Gulf countries is coming into focus, and that's a very good thing. However, we're extremely disappointed that the authorities in Qatar, and they've given various reactions, different numbers, no numbers, there is no problem, yes, there's a bit of a problem. What we're really seeing is a state of absolute denial, and nothing can change when that denial is still in place. We deal in our work very often with multinational companies that come under pressure for violations of labour rights. I have to say, unfortunately, the reaction so far from the Qatar authorities is more akin to that of a multinational company than to a state member of the United Nations and the International Labour Organization. Even the ILO has called for reform, and again this week demanded that FIFA step up its pressure on Qatar. So there's no questioning the facts. The facts are there, and everything that the Guardian newspaper, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, FIDH are reporting is on the same line. People are dying, and they're dying in conditions of modern slavery.
All right, so it is on the radar, Tim Noonan, but at the same time, the World Bank has put out a report this Wednesday saying 1/4 of Nepal's income comes from foreign remittances, money sent from abroad, from people working, and that number is going to increase. So does that put the Indian subcontinent at a disadvantage when you try to bargain for better rights for their migrant workers?
Imagine the positive impact in countries like Nepal and, for example, in states in India, if these workers were paid a decent wage and were able to send remittances home based on a decent wage level. The way the system works is that different categories of workers coming from different countries, are paid differently. We had a strike, an impromptu strike of bus drivers last week in Qatar, where drivers from Nepal were sick and tired of being paid so much less than drivers from other countries. Finally, they had no option but to take a strike action. We're very concerned for those people. We don't know what their fate is. The tradition has been to detain, to deport them. Sometimes they disappear into detention for long periods of time, no contact with their embassy, with their family. So really, the migration into these fabulously wealthy countries, Qatar is the richest country in the world on a population basis, the very richest. And it's exploiting workers from the poorest countries in the world in a quite disgraceful way.
All right, so the money is there. The money is there. You're saying, Tim Noonan, to pay them better. We're going to have to take a quick break, and we'll be back with much more. This is the France 24 debate.